Hello and welcome to the Alpha Movement Podcast. My name is Tom Foxley, and on today's show I am joined by Barry Mairs. So remember, this is now season 2 of the Alpha Movement Podcast, where we're focusing a touch more on why people do things they do, what makes a successful athlete, how coaches can kind of facilitate that, and it all comes down to mindset. So today I'm joined by Barry Mairs. He's a fascinating bloke who has got into the world of steel bending, which you're about to find out is incredible. So here is Barry. I'm going to get straight into it and ask about how you got into steel bending.
All right, so pretty weird story. So it was just after, so obviously went regionals with Team 8020 Black last year, and I'd sort of said to myself after, like, regionals has been my goal, you know, for the past sort of 3-4 years of, you know, either getting there as an individual. The main goal was individual, but obviously that was never going to happen because there was no way good enough to do that, and it just got harder and harder every year. Then moved back home to wanted to train at 8020, and you know, in that environment, because it's a really good environment because the guys there. And ended up, we had a really good training group, a really good competitive group, and we came together and said, you know, there's a good chance that we could go team here. So we came together, and that eventually happened. And it sort of said to myself, this is like 4 years of hard training to try and get to this. So we made it. It was brilliant. We went to regionals. It was absolutely brilliant. Enjoyed every second of it. Some awesome memories. But then I thought to myself, I needed a little bit of a break from this sort of training, and I didn't know what I was going to do after, because like it was every day training CrossFit every day. It was like 4 hours a day of training, sometimes twice a day, you know, maybe sometimes 3 times a day. It just depends, you know. So I didn't know. I had all this spare time. I didn't know what I was going to do, to take up a language or play the piano or whatever. So it's like I toyed with the idea of going back to doing a bit of judo or jiu-jitsu, which I'm still thinking I might do, but I just didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I got a little bit curious seeing things online with a couple of guys who I know were using these grippers, you know, the Captain's of Crush hand gripper. I thought, that looks pretty good. I want to see what the fuss is about here. So I ordered some of these Captain's of Crush hand grippers, and they are insanely hard to close. So I think I got like the starter, the trainer, and like the number 0.5, and I couldn't even close the 0.5. So it became like, whenever I sort of get into things, it becomes an absolute obsession. So obviously this became an obsession, doing this, and it got to the point where I thought that I want to do more. This is obviously working my grip, but I want to know more about this, and I want to do more. So I started researching more and more, went on to the Iron Mind website, the place where you get these grippers from, and looking in, and I find nail bending, or the red nail. And it just so happened that when I was looking for this stuff, I came across a guy who I knew from way years ago when I was doing a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a guy called Daniel Strauss. And I just so happened to come across his Instagram account and had a little look through. You know, he's a black belt now. I was like, oh, that's unreal. Blah blah blah. Going through, and I think, wait a minute, he's bending these nails. So I was thinking, he's doing this. He's bending nails. He's bending horseshoes, straightening horseshoes. I was like, this is pretty cool. And I'm thinking, well, I want to, you know, he's doing this. I want to try and do this to see if I can do it. So anyway, dropped him a message, and he was real helpful. You know, he was like, basically the crux of what he said to me was, you just got to get a 6-inch nail, wrap up the ends, and just, you know, sort of have a go. Look at the technique and have a go. So I did that, got a nail, wrapped up the ends, and I think it was like a chamois leather or a dishcloth or something. 35 minutes later, my head nearly popped off. I even braced it on my, you know, it's like the whole thing. I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but the whole thing is that you don't brace on any other part of your body. But I was bracing it on my leg, and it was like the hardest frigging thing in the world I've ever done. But after about 35 minutes, I finally got it done, and I was like, oh yeah, this is it now. This is. fuck the grippers. This is what I'm doing. I don't want the grippers anymore. I want to bend stuff. This is cool. So yeah, weird. I'll hold my hands up and say it's probably the weirdest thing that anyone's ever seen. But it's, unless you've done it, it's crazy.
It's fascinating though, from like the outside to look in and go like, that's like, A, how do you get started? And B, like, there's such a big community of guys that are doing it.
It was like me finding that, it was a complete and utter accident. You know, it wasn't like I was exposed to it in any sort of way in real life. It was just something I happened to stumble across because, you know, I wanted to develop my own hand and wrist and forearm strength. And obviously guided by Daniel as well. He gave me a little bit of training advice on how I should do that. And then obviously that came to then obviously finding the nail bending. And from that, then I went back obviously to the Iron Mind website, not knowing much about it really, to try and find out more. But that's just, like I said before, that's just the type of person I get absolutely obsessed with things. So I need to know every single detail of everything about it, the history of it, you know, everything. So I ended up on a load of forums, as you do. Real weird. And then, yeah, just learned all about it. Learned that there was this red nail certification, and then that I'm going to say it probably became my whole life for about 6 or 7 months until I eventually done it.
Nice. So what is the history of nail bending?
So it sort of started off around early 90s. A guy, Eric Millfield, I believe it was Eric Millfield, was one of the first to bend the red nail, which is, it's not actually a nail, it's a 7-inch long by 5/16 of an inch thick. So if you look at your normal sort of standard pen, it's probably just a little bit thicker than a pen, and obviously a little bit longer, 7 inches long. So he was the sort of first guy to do this, and then it's just kind of like an accolade, if you like, at that point, where guys had maybe just seen it, or they were in that community of friends, and you know, it was a little challenge that went out. Can you bend this the same way that I bent it? But the way he bent it, even now, is like regarded as, holy crap, that dude was insanely strong.
What makes a good bend?
So in order to certify, well, it depends. There's a couple of different people have different opinions. A good bend is a bend in the Iron Mind certification speak, is with their own wraps, is the only thing that's allowed to be on the bar, and a little bit of chalk. No rubber bands, so you can't hold the pads on with rubber bands. You bend until the two ends meet or are within 2 inches of each other. So the inside edge of the bar has to be within 2 inches, and that's regarded as a good bend in the time frame of 1 minute. So you have to do it sub 1 minute. Other certification, like other guys, most steel suppliers will have a certification list. So there's another company called FBBC, Fat Bastard Barbell Company. They're really, really good. It's a one-man setup. Andrew buys a lot of steel to all the benders all over the world, but he's very, very good, and it's a very reputable company. You know, he's supplying some good stuff, and he's also got a certification where he's just like, you know, just wrap it up. He's got a few loose rules. You've got 5 minutes to bend it down to the 2 inches, and you can use sort of whatever pads you want within reason. There's a few stipulations. Obviously, you can't brace it on your leg. It has to be a free. You're only allowed to hold it with your hands, and you can't use gloves or wrist supports or anything like that. So, yeah. And then there's another Russian company, or probably the next biggest, called Angrip World. They have the same sort of rules as what Andrew has, and their steel is just phenomenal. It's
what makes good steel.
I don't really know what makes good steel. It's
or from your point of view,
I think it's a lot. I mean, so the thing with the steel is knowing how hard it's going to be to bend. So how many kilograms or pounds of pressure or torque is it going to take to be able to manipulate the steel, to bend the steel. So there's a few different sort of calibration systems that people use. There's a guy in Russia who I've only just sort of started following on YouTube. He's got a really, really neat calibration setup. It's like if you can imagine like a box steel sort of setup. It looks like an H. It's shaped like an H, and he hooks like a chain system with the scales in the middle. He hooks it all up, winds like a little screw thing, and it pulls the metal down. The scales then give the reading when it gets to a certain bend. That tells you like this bar, it's going to take 200 kilograms of pressure to bend this bar. And the Iron Grip World guys have got the same. And what's special about Iron Grip World is that they supply bars that are calibrated in 5 kilo increments. So it makes strength progression extremely easy. So their bars start at, I think, 50 kilos and go up in 5 kilo increments to 230, I think, is their max bar. Now, the FBBC stuff isn't all calibrated, but he has a rough calibration system. His cert list is absolutely massive. Funny old thing I have at the hand.
That doesn't surprise me.
He's got like, there's, I don't know if you can see that, but there's literally, his calibration sheets are very, very good. And this is sort of what we look at. But he's got certification bars, maybe 50 certification bars that go from sort of red nail sort of level, which is the entry level, all the way up to bars that no one has ever bent before, which is crazy. So yeah, that's sort of the sort of standard, what people look for,
Nice. What's the technique then?
So there's 3 different techniques. So there's double overhand, which I use, which is the weird getting it up here in the throat and using that leverage of being high. The further you come down the chest, the harder it is to get leverage on the bar to bend it. The guy who I sought out to be my steel bending mentor, Paul McElroy, he's from Belfast. Brilliant guy, absolutely barking mad, which is brilliant. But I think what that guy doesn't know about strength and strength training, you could probably write on half a postage stamp. He's a font of knowledge, and his way of conveying his message and how he thinks about strength is completely different to anything that I've experienced or heard before.
In what way?
In the fact that the way he sort of describes how hard things are, it just makes you think differently. So he likes to use an RPE scale. So whenever he was sort of teaching me the different methods and how to go about, I was just like we do with everything. If you're going to do a 1 RM back squat, or if you're going to do a 5 RM deadlift, you sort of go into it and you think, well, I'm going to give this everything. I want to get the best results, so I'm going to get absolutely everything. But he sort of said, okay, well, maybe you don't need to give everything all the time. Maybe you only need to give 70% of that to get the same result. So it got, so we kind of got what he meant, but practice is better than talking. So we wrapped up a nail. This is one of the first sessions I had with him. We wrapped up a nail, and he said, okay, you just do what you do and let me watch. So I just went, and I was like, really, really went for it. Bent the nail, all good, fine. He's like, okay, that was 100% effort. Like, yeah. It's like, okay, do it again, but only use 70%. Like, okay. So done it again, wrapped it up, went, give what I thought was 70, and it bent just the same. And he was like, okay, now use 50. So wrapped another nail up, and I was like, technique, done it again, what I thought was 50%, and it went probably to that point, it was probably the easiest bend of a 6-inch nail that I'd ever done, because I wasn't putting as much effort in, and I was using the efficient technique that he'd shown me, and it had brought the effort down to 50%. So it just made something go in my mind. Well, maybe you don't always have to use this, or really go for it. It just made me think about strength in a different kind of way.
When you're bending, what are you thinking?
That's a good question.
Does it activate lats? Because I imagine your lats are a big part of it, or is it?
I'm thinking that I need to keep the position of elbows high. Elbows high for me is probably the biggest thing. If I can get my elbows high, it means I'm coming over the top.
Okay.
I can sort of impose my force. Getting over the top of the bar is pretty important. Keep not letting the elbows drop. If the elbows drop, then there's a lot of strain on the wrist.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And like with a boxer, if he's throwing a hook, the forearm wants to stay parallel, because if the elbow comes up, they're losing a lot of power in the punch. So you want to keep the wrist straight and keep the forearm straight. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get over the top of the bar, making sure that grip's secure and the wrist's straight. If the wrist starts to bend, the wrists could easily break.
Okay.
Because it's very strange in the fact that, I've learned as well that the amount of force that I can actually exert in a single effort has probably increased by 4 or 5 times than before.
Do you reckon that's a skill thing, or do you reckon that's?
I think it's a mind thing.
Okay. In what way?
I think because the brain's a wonderful thing, but it's a limiter.
Mm.
At the preset of the brain, I am of the opinion that there's a limiter on the brain, and the brain will only allow you to do what it's comfortable to do.
Yeah.
So you have to tell the brain that this is okay. So you have to expose it to that new thing, So when the first time I'm bending the 6-inch nail, it takes me 35 minutes. I'm applying the most pressure I've probably ever applied on anything, to the point where my eyes nearly pop out of my head and my brain's thinking, what the hell are you doing? Stop this right now. But you keep going. And then the brain goes, oh, actually, we didn't get injured. It's okay. We'll allow you now to use that strength because it's safe. And it grants you the next level of openness to the strength that you can produce. Then obviously your strength progresses up. And the brain says, oh, okay, we're not injured. This is okay. We'll allow you to use this strength. And it gets to the point where you're bending a red nail in 15 seconds when, 4 or 5 months ago, you struggled to do a 6-inch nail in 35 minutes. So I think everyone has got the strength. Strength can be built increment. Everyone's got the ability to build strength. It's the ability to open the mind and put yourself in a position where your brain understands that it's okay, that it's going to allow you to do it.
I completely agree.
So anyway, I'm of the opinion right now, any male that's done any sort of training in his life can bend a 6-inch nail with a little bit of technique. Just a minute of me saying, do this, they can bend it. And that's been proven because there's a few guys in the gym at 80-20 who are friends of mine. And they're a little bit inches. I go, what are you doing? That's weird. I wrap them in the okay, you bend it. And they bent it. Okay. Straight away I'm saying, hold it like this, put it here, apply the pressure this way, and they bent it.
What would those key points be?
The key points would be that when the bar's in the hand, you only want a minimal amount of bar.
So maximum leverage, yeah.
Yeah, so it's really just the edge of the bar, maybe an inch of the bar in the webbing of the thumb webbing here. Yeah. Obviously tight grip, straight wrists. If you use double overhand, because there is a couple of other techniques. I'm actually I'm mentoring a guy at the minute, and he utilizes double underhand, which is obviously bending this way.
Okay.
When I don't bend that way, I don't feel I can produce
That must be very difficult. Like,
yeah, but it's different. You know, it's horses for courses. But some guys can produce an insane amount of power that way.
Yeah.
And likewise, there's the reverse technique where you hold the bar like this and you come down like this.
Okay, so you're pulling away from you from the guys that are listening. You're pushing on,
and that's insane wrist strength.
Yeah.
You know, that's a crazy amount of wrist strength. There's a really prolific steel bender and strength and conditioning coach called Jed Johnson, American guy. He's done a lot of DVDs, a lot of ebooks that I've actually bought quite a few of his ebooks for his wrist and hand development and strength, and he's very, very knowledgeable, very, very good, and it's unorthodox training. Some of the stuff that he does is you've never seen before, and there's an exercise, I posted it online a while ago. I actually seen Daniel doing it, and then he's seen it from one of Jed's DVDs. It's like an isometric barbell in between two squat racks where you press down one side and pull up on another side, and I just call it the everything exercise because it just
like magic.
And so he's a real good resource for beginners, and for if you hit a plateau, maybe trying a few his little things that you can do just to bounce off a plateau, you know.
Yeah. Do you remember the first pieces of advice that Daniel gave you?
My first initial questions to Daniel were actually about how to develop sort of grip strength, so wrist and forearm grip strength. And his advice, and it's advice now that I give to people, because I took that advice and I used it I put it into my program for about 8 weeks, and it was unbelievable, was farmer's walks. Thick handle, he's just grab a couple of kettlebells, so thicker the handle the better, just walking with kettlebells. And that in itself was one of the key factors of the development of my hand, wrist and forearm strength, was holding on to those kettlebells and walking with them. That was probably one of the best pieces of advice that he gave me, and it was invaluable. He doesn't know this, but it was invaluable to me. Nice. Because it really, really, really improved me, and I think it's one of the reasons why I progressed as fast as I did to the red nail as quickly as I did.
Would you do anything differently now if you would start again?
Yes. I hate to say that I would do anything different. I never have regrets, because I always think, you know, things happen the way they happen because it's meant to. But I was a bit silly. And with the education that I have on the body and the things that I've done, you know, should really know better, but you never follow your own advice.
No.
I actually injured my hand whilst bending. I can't even remember what the piece. In fact, I can't remember what the piece of steel was. It was a piece of steel from a manufacturer's in Belfast called K&M. It's an 8mm thick. 8mm thick piece of steel, 7 inches long. And it was the first time I got this real excited for this stuff. Tough steel. Paul actually was like, "You go to K&M, get the 8mm stuff." And the guys in the place were like, "What are you using this for? What, you know?" Just as a curious, you know, I was like, "Oh, are you making something?" And I was like, "No, I'm going to bend it." They're like, "What do you mean you're going to bend it?" Like, just put a line and then bend it with my hands. And they were like, "Oh, I don't understand what you." So I was like, "So don't worry about it." So that was fun. But so this piece of steel I was bending, and this is the thing we were saying about the mind. At that point, the mind had allowed me to access to apply this amount of pressure on the steel. However, my strength was at that level. My mind was at that level. The soft tissue was, however, not at that level. It wasn't conditioned to take that amount of pressure. And I just continued applying pressure, and I'd done a little bit of soft tissue damage, maybe a little bit of nerve damage in the palm of my hand, just around here. And literally it got to the point where I finished that bar and done another bar stupidly, and then I couldn't even close or open my hand for the rest of the night. And I was like, oh crap, I've done something here. This isn't good. So the next day I woke up, I was like, oh, hopefully this is okay. Open and close my hand. It was sore to touch. Couldn't even grip a door handle to open a door handle. And I was like, oh God, I actually felt like I've broken a bone in my hand. So that was it. Out for, I think it was 6 or 7 weeks. Didn't bend a single piece of steel for about 6 weeks. Struggled even to hold a barbell and do any sort of barbell cycling or anything like that. So it was a frustrating time for sure, because it was right at the point where I was, just getting there. I just took a delivery of my first batch of red nails. So they were sitting in my cupboard laughing at me. I then got a delivery of this Russian steel from Iron Grip, and I was like, oh God. And all I wanted to do was bend this steel, but it was like had to be strict, and it was like, no, I can't do anything.
What was your rehab process like from that?
So it was a bit of trial and error, because I wasn't really 100% sure what exactly I'd done. And going to any sort of healthcare professional and saying that I bend steel and trying to explain that process to them is a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
So all I could really think was it's a high force pressure related injury. Luckily, the guy I worked with, Gavin Noble, fantastic physiotherapist, Northern Ireland's leading back care specialist. He's a font of knowledge. Luckily enough, he was willing just to try all sorts with me. Done a little bit of acupuncture just to see if it worked, but don't really believe in it. But tried it anyway. Try anything. Nothing really seemed to work, and it was just sore. And I don't even remember now, to be honest, where I seen this. I think it might have just been online, or I can't even remember where I seen it, but I watched a video of something to do with hand rehabilitation, and the guy was alluding to the fact that when you've got a hand, so if any of the palmar muscles are weak or atrophied, that you should do eccentric extension off, so that you give eccentric extension.
What are you using to apply the force there?
So I played around with it for a little bit, just using my finger.
Yeah.
Simply just doing this and pushing away. And I'd done that for about 2 weeks, and it worked. And I was like, holy crap. So then I progressed on, obviously, incrementally, started using the grippers. So I'd close the gripper with one hand and then sort of eccentrically load with just the last sort of 3 fingers. And that took it to the next level. The pain then, over the course of after I started using the gripper, over the course of about 3 or 4 days, the pain went. And I was like, fantastic. So I was like, am I okay to bend? So I was like, took a couple of small pieces, and no pain when bending. So this is absolutely brilliant. The reason I got the injury in the first place is because I placed, whenever you're doing a crush down, so the crush down is sort of like hands interlocked, and the ends of the bar sort of are meant to run in between in this sort of area. But I had set the bar just over here, and then obviously applied the pressure to this soft tissue area, and that's obviously what caused the injury. So it was making sure the placement was right. Okay. But there was no pain when doing this. So it's like, okay, that's good. So done a few small pieces of metal that I knew would be okay. That was all fine, no pain, which was brilliant. Waited a couple of days for recovery. Had the red nails, and I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to try a red nail. So done a couple of other pieces which were good with no pain, and I got the red nail, and I bent the sucker. The first red nail I tried, bent it, and I was, yes, this is on. Messaged Paul straight away, and I was like, just sent him the picture, done. and he was like going out of his mind. It was class. When
Nice.
he goes out of his mind, he's like,
He sounds like a good podcast guest.
he is. You know what? I don't know if he done a podcast a little while ago now with the Strength Matters guys.
Yep.
And he's eccentric, and he's done so much stuff. He would be a fantastic guest.
Awesome. I'll ask you to put me in touch after this.
And he's like, yeah, I won't spoil it, but his whole story is fantastic. But yeah, so he was absolutely buzzing. And at this point, you know, he hadn't really done much steel bending in like maybe a year. And he's up there, you know, with some of the best in the world. He's bending some serious stuff. And I kind of jibed him a little bit. It was like, oh, you know, you going to bend any sort of, you know, we had this little bit. And then, so he's nice, you know, he gets back into the bending, and eventually now it's led on to he's, you know, ordering stuff, and he's doing some crazy steel bending, and his style of bending is the same style as mine, but completely different. His technique is awful. But he still manages to bend all the stuff that he bends. It's insane.
Are you still CrossFitting?
I am still CrossFitting. I get, like, anytime I post anything on social media to do with steel bending, I'm sure you've seen, I get a couple of comments or trickled in of guys who are in the steel bending community going, oh, that's awesome, well done, this is great, you know, blah. And every other comment, maybe 50 or so comments, are like, you're such a bender. Why are you doing this stupidness? Stop this steel bending malarkey. I thought you were a CrossFitter. I was like, I am still doing CrossFit. I'm like, training CrossFit, you know, pretty much every day.
Do you think it's made you a better CrossFitter?
I think it has made me a better CrossFitter.
And how's that?
Because I think it's given me an appreciation for how much I knew I could handle a decent amount of pain before, but it's made me realize the amount of actual pain that I can tolerate is a lot more. So when I'm in the dire straits of a workout, I won't stop as much, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a mind thing. You know, maybe not physical pain, but mental pain of stop moving. You can sort of get that point where you can override that.
Yeah. Are there any particular moments that's kind of really, really been prominent, or something that's kind of switched in your head?
In terms of the CrossFit?
In terms of like you've suddenly become more mentally resilient.
I think, we done in December, in the middle of December there, we done a 24-hour AMRAP challenge, it was called. So basically every hour for 24 hours they release 3 exercises, and you do those 3 exercises for the full hour. So you're basically working out as a team of 6. We had a team of 5, because one of the guys had to drop out. So you're basically exercising for the full 24 hours, and it was an absolute suckfest.
Yeah, I bet.
I've done some hard stuff, but that was probably one of the hardest things I've done. And at like 4 a.m, doing powerlifter style box squats with a 20-kilo barbell, and nearly crying because I was in so much pain. Yeah. You gotta keep going, you know, because we were in first and the guys in second were closing on us, and it was like, oh, I gotta keep going. And that was really, really hard mentally. And I think I was able to keep going though, you know. What's
your self-talk sound like when you're in a situation like that?
Self-talk sounds like stop. But it's only a voice, you know, it's only an opinion.
So I think you've got another voice on top of that.
Yeah.
What's that one saying? That
one's saying, you know, it's thinking, well, what's the consequences? What's the consequences if I stop now? If I say, right, if I stop now and listen to this guy, okay, yeah, I can rest. However, what's the consequences if I do that? The consequences are I make it harder, one, for the team, because the team have to do more work. Two, is it going to be worth the rest? Because I'm here now and I'm doing the thing, so it's not stopping until 11. It's not stopping until it stops. So regardless of if I want to stop, it's not finished. You got to go till it's finished. So it's the other voice is sort of saying, what are the pros to stopping? There are no pros to stopping. You're making it harder for your teammates, which is the number one defining factor. If you're making life harder for someone else, don't stop what you're doing. You're gonna if you stop and doing what you're doing now is going to make someone else's life harder. Don't do that thing. Don't make someone else's life harder. And that was it. If I would have stopped, the guys had to do more work, and that's not fair. So.
Exactly. No, I think peer pressure's got a really bad name, but it can be very beneficial in situations.
Oh yeah, in that situation, and even at regionals as well. That's the thing. Is like, the team would always say, "Oh, you're not letting us down. It's just the things that happen. You still hold your head high, but you're accountable to the team." And I didn't want to be the person who didn't do the thing and made us not get to where we got to, So you gotta. It's accountability. Accountability is, I think, one of the biggest things. You need accountability in your life for everything. If you don't have accountability, if you've got no one to say, "Why aren't you doing that thing you said you were going to do?" then it's easier to stop. It's easier to give up.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. Why should the average CrossFitter get into bending nails?
Because it's just cool. I think it's just why did you get in? Why do people get into CrossFit? Why do people start powerlifting? Why do people start Olympic weightlifting? Because no one started CrossFit, maybe apart from someone like Steve CrossFit or someone like our Sam Briggs, who are like games competitors. No one started CrossFit to become world champ, to make loads of money, to do all that stuff. Everyone started CrossFit to have fun, to work out, to get fit, to have fun. So it's like, why do you do anything? Why did you try something? Why did you stop going to the normal global gym, doing your thing, and why did you start doing CrossFit? Because it's fun, So try something new. That's what you just about. I wanted to try something new, and this is what cropped up, and I've done it. Simple as that.
You've pretty much sold me on it. How do I start?
What I would say is go and get a 6-inch nail. Be really, really careful. The risk of injury, obviously, you're trying to bend a nail. The risk of injury, there's always a risk. Wrap up the ends with something and just try.
Is that just to stop it piercing your skin?
Yeah.
Brutal.
The steel that I use, so I get steel from a company over in England. It comes in 3-meter lengths. I have to cut it down with bull croppers. So the first part of the wrap that I put on is to stop any laceration happening. So any from the sharp ends that the bolt cutters leave. With the stuff you get from Iron Grip World and the stuff that Andrew sends over from FBBC, they're really good. They grind down the ends, so it's a nice smooth finish on the ends. So you don't have that problem, but you still wrap up the ends because you do need a bit of protection.
Yeah,
we're not crazy Russians. The Russian guys, man, they do stuff in bare hands. That
do it with the teeth.
Yeah, I follow a few of the Russian guys on YouTube and Instagram and stuff, and they are a different breed of human. They're class. Nice. We need a little bit more Russian in the UK, I think.
Maybe more vodka is the way to go.
Yeah.
Do you have any daily routines or stuff that you do regularly that kind of puts you in a good headspace?
Yeah, so in a good headspace, yeah, I think I very much thrive in. I like to be social. So talking to people is kind of my therapy, if you like. So I'd always be online, social media thing, messaging people. I like my own time as well. I like to be on my own, but I think on my own, but talking to people, if that makes sense. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
I think, and that puts me in a good mood. Knowing that there's people to talk to, people to converse with. It's crap if you text someone and they don't text back. It's crap, isn't it? We're humans. We need to communicate to each other. So I thrive off communication, I think, a little bit.
Nice. Are there any books that you've gifted to other people, or that you think about like that was a book that changed my life?
So I'm looking to this side because I don't know. Let me see if I can do this. I don't know if you can. That's
Supple leopard in there.
Yeah, that's like a little. These are like I've got like a load of other books in one of my cupboards. But these are the books that are like mainly my thing. So I think probably this book is really so it's all about a champion's mindset.
Okay,
is that backwards in your thing or
no? That's right.
So that's a really good. That was a really good book.
Who's that by?
Oh my god, I don't even hold it up because I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce that name.
Jim Aframo. I'll go for.
Really good book. That was actually a gift. That's really good. Yeah, really, really good book.
Nice.
So that's all about mindset and how he just like looked at all the sort of champions and past champions from different sports and what they do to create their positive mindset in order to be successful. Like obviously the champion's mind. And there's some stuff in that that's really good. There's other stuff that's a bit like baseball American, but it's on the whole, it's a pretty good book. I'm reading a book at the minute. I'm part of the Strong Mind Book Club.
Nice plug.
Yeah, I like to think I'm one of the founding members, and I like to think it was idea bouncing that me and Chet. I give him that. Didn't give him it, but we sort of. Let me just grab it. So this was the first book of the Strong Mind Book Club that I'm almost finished now. It's Made to Stick. Really, really interesting.
I've heard of that.
Are you a part of the book club?
No, I'm not yet. It's something I keep on meaning to get around to.
You need to sign up. Really good. And he does this cool. There's like a book club like stamp.
Yeah, I've seen that. The packaging.
Real good touch. But that's an awesome book. Really interesting concept on how to make ideas stick in people's minds. So like it gives an analogy of and you've heard or you can recall the urban legend of you're in a bar or of a guy who was in a bar that a girl came up to him, bought him a drink, and then that's the last thing he remembers. He wakes up in a bath full of ice the next day and someone's stolen his liver. So that's an urban legend that everyone knows, right?
Yeah.
However, you don't remember the Pythagoras' theorem, do you?
Well, I'm a freak, so yeah, I do.
So it's like how do people remember the detail of that urban legend? What makes that stick in the mind over something boring? Maybe you like Pythagoras' theorem. That's cool. But over that, what makes it stick? And it's a really, really interesting concept. And I think if utilized well, it could be a real good tool to use on social media, I think.
Do you have you heard of how they memorize a deck of cards?
No.
Okay, so what they'll do is they'll assign like a a characteristic to each suit of cards, and for each actual card they'll associate like a person or an object. So for example, like the king of diamonds, because diamonds mean rich, like could be Donald Trump or something.
Okay.
So, and then they would walk through, so it's creating a story essentially around it, and then somewhere they know really well. For example, if I was going into my flat, I would say on the coat hanger with the king of diamonds first, like Donald Trump met X, Y, and Z. And that story, and all they're doing is memorizing the story.
I have actually heard of a kind of a similar thing. A really good friend of mine, Adam Russett, we started CrossFitting together. Really clever guy, and he has got this innate ability to remember numbers. You could recite any number to him, and he 99% of the time he'll remember that number. He's also got this really weird skill of knowing every major road in Great Britain and knowing where it goes to, and if it's got an accessibility to a good service station. It's absolutely frigging crazy. But he does this. I know we asked him one time how he does it, and it's the same type of thing. He remembers it through a story.
Nice.
But it's quite funny. You bring that up. It's good memory. He's a good guy.
So I'd honestly love to carry this conversation on for ages. I think you're a fascinating bloke, and you've got a ton of stuff that I want to kind of dig out of your mind. But unfortunately, I've got to shoot now. If there was one piece of advice that you could give the audience, what would it be?
One piece of advice would be, and it's definitely a headspace that I'm in right now, is don't let others dictate what you think is right to do. I think doing what you feel is right is enough. You know, if you want to go to Bali for 4 weeks to surf, you go and do that. If that's what you want to do, don't let other people influence you with a negative mindset. I'm very much in a mindset at the minute of, you know, if you put something on social media and you say you're going to do something, and then you get like 10 people saying, "Oh, why would you want to go and do that?" You know, blah 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 blah. It's like it really sort of bugs me, the amount of hate and the amount of negativity that there is around what people want to do. If it makes you happy, pursue that thing that makes you happy, because in life, that's all you have, is the things that make you happy and the people that make you happy. And I think that's, you know, if I could say one thing to everyone, do what makes you happy, because that's the most important thing.
Nice. I think that's an awesome place to end.
Cool.
Thane you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Having me. It's been brilliant.
As you may have noticed, I neglected to ask Barry the question, where can we find out a bit more about you? So here is the answer to that question.
And I will tag it on to the end.
All right, okay. So if anyone wants to contact me for anything steel bending related, or if you just want to have a chat because you think I'm weird, that's cool. Contact me through Facebook, or if you want to send me an email, it's just barrymairs@gmail.com. Ask any questions that you want to. It's just my ambition is to spread the steel bending, the bending love, and as many people as possible.
So I hope you enjoyed that show with Barry. I certainly did, and I've listened to it a couple of times now. It is a really good chat. But anyway, if you enjoyed it, please reach out to us on social media. Facebook's the best method for me, and Barry's fairly active on social as well. So feel free to reach out to us and support the show however you want. If you want to share this, that's awesome. It means the world to both of us. And now, you glorious people, I shall leave you, and I shall see you soon for another episode of the Alpha Movement Podcast.